What were the moments behind the camera that you feel like most people don't know about?
Yeah, I mean, the van was an incredible era. Basically, I lived in a van for like a year and traveled all across the country, trained in Boulder, lived in LA, lived in San Francisco, just lived all throughout the country, visited a bunch of friends in college. And yeah, it was like definitely looking back, it's like one of the best memories in life. Like just like such an insane year where like I went from like knowing very little about the world and then to knowing like a lot more. And it was like such a phenomenal period of growth for myself, just like, you know, running my own finances
Yeah.
and just like actually having responsibility to like, live. And yeah, I met so many incredible people. And I think that the hardest part of it was really just like, coming to know myself potentially. Like there's so much time where you're alone when you like arrive to a new city. Like I would arrive to like a new place. Like when I arrived to Boulder, I knew like Rachel MacArthur and sort of knew Drew Hunter like through the grapevine and knew a few other people through the grapevine, but I like really didn't have anybody that was like, oh, that's my friend. And that was the first time I pulled up to somewhere where I didn't know anybody. And I was like, dang, how do you make friends? And that's like a wild thing to think about. But when you're like an adult, it's not like the same because
there's
like
no
you're
book
not
or
like going to
guide to
school
it.
with
Yeah.
everybody. You're not. Yeah, it's like
You have to
how do
intentionally seek out community
dude,
if you want it.
100%. And it was like scary, and I think there were a lot of nights where I was just like chilling in the van alone and I would like call my friend Cole and we would just like chop it up on the phone, and somehow he was just down to call like every night. So we would call like all the time and just chop it up. And it was like awesome of him to like be there to call, and like I loved our calls. But like that time at night was probably like the hardest, where like in the first few days of like arriving to a new city where you're like, I don't know anybody, I'm just gonna do nothing.
Yeah. How lonely was the journey at times?
I would say generally it was awesome, and generally it was like not lonely, but I think that like there were definitely moments where like I just really was like alone. And I think it was like an awesome experience to be able to be alone like that. Like I think you grow up your whole life, surrounded by like high school friends, like you bump into somebody at the supermarket, whatever. But to be somewhere where like you literally don't know anybody is like frightening. But it's also like freeing, and you become like a new version of yourself where you're like, oh, like I can like reinvent myself to like be like who I am. And yeah, I think that there were like really lonely moments, and they're mostly just at night because like you can't like go to a coffee shop at night. And I mean, I wasn't like 21, so I couldn't like go to a bar and like hang out and meet people there. So it was just like a like very what should I do? I'm in this small van in
Confined
somebody's
space,
neighborhood. Yeah, I don't know. Like those moments, I feel like get erased from memory a little bit more than like the awesome moments. But
Sure.
I feel like as I like grew into a city like Boulder, like it started to become where like I had a routine and I would run into my friends and like I would hang out with people and like I was like doing a lot of stuff, and so it was always like exciting because I was always like, oh, like I have this run and I get to hang out with these people and that and that. And it was like so free because like I also just had my house with me wherever I went. So like if I went over to a friend's house and I was like, oh, can I just sleep in your front yard tonight? So it was like kind of awesome because now I could just like sleep there, wake up, go, have some more fun. So it became like, it went from like kind of scary and like unknown to like super fun by the time I left, and always like sad to leave a new place. But usually in that place, I'd meet somebody that would lead me to the next place. Like I met my friend Baxter in Boulder, which led me to San Francisco, and I ended up staying with him for a few like weeks before the marathon. So it was like this beautiful web of like people that I would meet along the way that I would then reconnect with somewhere else, and it was like so awesome.